On the day of my 70th birthday, I witnessed something I never could have imagined. My own daughter, the one I carried for 9 months, threw my birthday cake to the floor and with a sarcastic smile said, "Eat it off the floor, you useless old woman." The entire room burst into laughter. I didn't shed a single tear. I simply observed every face around me. They thought they had destroyed me, but they didn't know what I still had in store. But before I go on, check to see if you're already subscribed and write in the comments where you are watching this from. We love to know how far our stories are reaching. It was supposed to be a small celebration, nothing extravagant, just me, my daughter, my 3 grandchildren, and a few close friends. I had saved a little from my Social Security check for months to be able to celebrate this special date. 70 years is no small thing. Every wrinkle on my face tells a story of sacrifice and unconditional love. I put on my best dress, the light blue one my late husband, David, always said matched my eyes. I applied a soft lipstick, combed my gray hair, and put on the pearl necklace he gave me when I turned 50. I wanted to look pretty, even if it was just for myself. The cake was nothing fancy, just a simple chocolate cake with whipped cream frosting from a local bakery. I asked them to write, "Happy Birthday, Grace," in colorful icing. It was simple, but it meant a lot to me. I carried it carefully to my daughter's house in Bryn Mawr, a wealthy suburb of Philadelphia, where the celebration was being held. When I arrived, I noticed the table was already filled with bottles of expensive liquor. My daughter, Amanda, was in the center of the living room telling some story to the guests who were roaring with laughter. They weren't my friends, they were hers. People I barely knew, unfamiliar faces who didn't even know my full name. "Mom," she said when she finally noticed me at the entrance. Her voice had that familiar tone of impatience. "You're way too early. It's the time you asked me to come," I replied softly, still holding the cake carefully. "I brought the cake, I promised." She looked at the box in my hands as if I were carrying trash. "You shouldn't have bothered. I already ordered one from that fancy French patisserie downtown." I felt a knot in my chest, but I kept my smile. "No problem. We can have 2 cakes, right? The more the merrier." I placed the cake on the kitchen table and discreetly looked around the house that was once mine. The same house where I raised my daughter alone after my husband's premature death. The house I signed over to her when she turned 30 because I thought it was the right thing to do. The walls that once held our photos now displayed expensive, abstract paintings. The simple furniture we bought with so much sacrifice had been replaced by modern, elegant pieces. There was nothing left to remind anyone that this place had once belonged to me. "Grandma!" The voice of my youngest granddaughter, Sophie, only 8 years old, pulled me from my thoughts. She ran to hug me, and for a moment, I felt there was still some affection in that house. "Sophie, don't run in the house," Amanda scolded, pouring herself a glass of wine. "And don't wrinkle Grandma's dress. It's probably the only one she has." The little girl pulled away, looking confused at her mother. I held my smile, trying not to show how much those words hurt. The afternoon passed slowly. I sat in a corner of the living room, watching my own birthday party unfold without me. No one offered me a drink. No one sat beside me to chat. It was as if I were invisible at my own celebration. When it was time to sing Happy Birthday, Amanda brought out an elegant cake decorated with sugar flowers and golden candles. "Happy birthday, Mom," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The cake I had brought remained forgotten in the kitchen. After the happy birthday song and forced applause, Amanda began to serve slices of the fancy cake. It was then that one of the guests, already visibly affected by the alcohol, asked, "What about that other cake? Aren't we going to eat that one too?" An awkward silence filled the room. All eyes turned to Amanda, who seemed irritated by the mention. "Oh, that thing. My mother insisted on bringing it, but just look at it." She went to the kitchen and returned, carrying my humble cake. "It looks like something a 5-year-old would make in school." Nervous laughter echoed through the room. I felt my face burn, but I kept my composure. 70 years had taught me to swallow my pride when necessary. "I bought it with love," I said in a low voice. "I thought we could share it." Amanda stared at me, her eyes cold and distant. In that moment I didn't recognize the child I once cradled in my arms. "Love? You think this is a worthy gift? A cheap little cake to make up for years of absence?" "Absence?" I worked 2 jobs to support you after your father died. I was always there when you needed me, I replied, feeling my throat tighten. And now what do you want? A medal? She laughed, looking at the guests as if seeking their approval. Look at this, everyone. My mother thinks a bakery cake makes up for not giving me the life I deserved. Before I could respond, Amanda did something I will never forget. She took the cake with both hands and threw it on the floor right at my feet. The impact splattered pieces of chocolate and whipped cream across the hardwood floor that I had once so carefully polished. If you like this cheap cake so much, why don't you eat it off the floor? It's what you deserve, you useless old woman. The room erupted in laughter. Some guests looked embarrassed, but no one defended me. No one stood up to say that was too cruel. My own granddaughters, to whom I had given so many gifts and so much love, laughed timidly, following their mother's lead. I looked at the cake splattered at my feet. The Grace written in icing was now a distorted mess on the floor. For a second everything froze. Every face, every smile, every look of contempt was etched into my memory like a photograph that would never fade. I could have cried. I could have screamed. I could have made a scene and stormed out. But 70 years of life taught me that true strength lies in silence, in the ability to observe, absorb, and wait for the right moment. So I simply stood up, brushed off the few pieces of cake that had spattered my dress, and looked my daughter in the eyes. I didn't say a word. It wasn't necessary. Everything that needed to be said would be done with actions, not words. I walked out of the house slowly with my head held high. The night air was cool, as if trying to extinguish the heat of humiliation still burning on my cheeks. As I walked home, I thought about everything I had sacrificed for my daughter. The sleepless nights when she was sick, the 3 jobs I held to pay for her law school at Penn, the house I built with so much effort and put in her name, the deeds I still kept, the transfer documents with my trembling signature. They thought they had broken an old woman, but they didn't know that when you live 70 years in this world, you learn that patience is the most powerful of virtues, and that sometimes revenge is a dish best served cold, very cold. Upon entering my small apartment, the one I moved into after giving my house to Amanda, I didn't turn on the lights. I sat in the darkness, feeling each beat of my heart slowly calm down. I didn't shed a single tear. There was no reason to cry. There was only the certainty of what had to be done. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I rarely used. Mr. Henderson, it's Grace. I need to make an appointment for tomorrow. Yes, it's urgent. There are some legal changes I need to make. When I hung up, I felt something awaken within me. Something that had lain dormant for years, smothered by a mother's unconditional love. Now that love had limits and my daughter had just crossed them. The next morning, I woke with a mental clarity I hadn't felt in years. The sun streaming through the window couldn't warm the chill that had settled in my chest. It wasn't anger. It was determination. I dressed carefully, choosing a formal outfit I rarely wore. I took the folder with all the important documents I had kept for years and left. Mr. Henderson's office was in Center City. He had been our family's lawyer for decades, since my husband was still alive. As I walked through the busy streets, I thought about how my life had changed. In this same downtown area, I used to bring Amanda for ice cream after school. She would hold my hand tightly and smile with chocolate-stained lips. What had happened to that bright-eyed little girl? Grace. Mr. Henderson greeted me with a kind smile. He was older just like me, but his eyes still had that sharpness I always admired. Your call worried me. What happened? I sat in the chair across from his desk and placed the folder on it. I need to make some changes to the property documents and my will. He looked at me with curiosity, but without judgment. Are you sure? The last time we spoke, you were determined to leave everything to your daughter and grandchildren. People change, counselor, or rather they reveal who they truly are. I opened the folder and began to show him the documents, the deed to the house I had transferred to Amanda 10 years ago, which contained a clause few lawyers would include. I retained the right to revoke the transfer if I deemed it necessary. The documents for the small clothing boutique I started, which Amanda now managed, but whose majority shares were still in my name, the savings account where I deposited every penny I saved throughout my life, and for which Amanda had power of attorney to use in case of need. I want it all back, I said firmly. The house, control of the company, the power of attorney for the account, and I want to change my will. Mr. Henderson adjusted his glasses and examined the papers carefully. Grace, this is a serious decision. What happened between you two? I told him about the birthday party, about the cake thrown on the floor, about the laughter, about decades of sacrifice turned into mockery. As I spoke, I could see a mix of shock and compassion in his eyes. I understand your pain, Grace, and yes, legally you can make these changes. The clause in the house deed is clear, and the company shares are still in your name. As for the power of attorney, we can revoke it today. And the will? It can be changed at any time. It's your right. He hesitated before continuing. But are you sure you want to do this? She is your only daughter. I looked out the window watching the city. Counselor, I spent my entire life putting her wants and needs above my own. I sacrificed my youth, my health, my opportunities, everything for her. And yesterday, she showed me exactly what she thinks of me and everything I did. He nodded slowly. I understand. I'll prepare the documents. It should take a few days for everything to be processed. How long until the house is officially back in my name? With the clause we included, we can file the reversal within a week at the latest. The revocation of the power of attorney is immediate. I left the office with a strange sense of lightness. It wasn't happiness, not by a long shot. It was the certainty of doing something I should have done a long time ago, protecting what was rightfully mine. In the following days, Amanda did not get in touch. No call to apologize, no text message asking if I was okay. It was as if the humiliation she inflicted on me was something trivial, forgotten as soon as the laughter died down. Her indifference only confirmed that I was making the right decision. A week later, I received the call I was expecting. Grace, the documents are ready for your signature, Mr. Henderson informed me. If you can come to the office today, we can finalize everything. When I arrived, he presented me with a meticulously organized stack of papers. Each one represented a piece of my past that I was reclaiming. I signed each one with a steady hand, without hesitation. When will she be notified? I asked after signing the last document. The notices will be sent tomorrow. The reversal of the house deed will be registered with the county clerk by the end of the week. As for the company, since the shares were always in your name, you can take control immediately. That night, I slept soundly for the first time since the cake incident. I didn't dream of revenge or retaliation. I dreamed of justice. The first sign that something had changed came 3 days later. My phone rang insistently in the morning. It was Amanda. Mom, what is this? I received a notice from the county about the house. I kept my voice calm, almost as if we were discussing the weather. Yes, I'm taking back what's mine. What? You can't do that. The house has been in my name for years. Read the deed carefully, Amanda, especially the fine print you never bothered to check. There was a silence on the other end of the line, followed by the sound of papers being shuffled. Is this some kind of revenge? Her voice was trembling now, a mix of anger and disbelief. No, dear, it's justice. Just as you thought it was fair to humiliate me in front of everyone, I think it's fair to take back what I built with so much sacrifice. You can't do this to me. Where am I going to live? Where will the kids live? The same question you didn't care about when you told me to eat cake off the floor. I paused before continuing. You have 30 days to vacate the property. Mom, have you gone crazy? Is this because of that stupid party? It was just a joke. A joke? My voice remained calm but as cold as steel. You threw my birthday cake on the floor, called me a useless old woman, and ordered me to eat from the ground while everyone laughed. What kind of joke is that, Amanda? The silence on the other end of the line confirmed what I already knew. She saw nothing wrong with what she had done. To her, humiliating her own mother was just entertainment. And the company? The bank called me saying my power of attorney was revoked. As I said, I'm taking back what's mine. You can't do this. I've run that company for years. It's my livelihood, my job. It's my company, Amanda. Built with my sweat while you were in college. The shares were always in my name. You were only managing it with my permission. I heard a sob on the other end. It wasn't one of sadness. It was one of rage. You're going to regret this, Mom. I swear. I've regretted many things in my life, dear. Trusting you so much is one of them. I hung up the phone and took a deep breath. I felt no pleasure or satisfaction, only the certainty that I was setting things right. For the first time in decades, I was prioritizing my own well-being, my own dignity. In the following weeks, the storm I predicted came to pass. Amanda tried everything from legally challenging the reversals to sending the grandchildren to beg me to change my mind. But the law was on my side, and more importantly, so was justice. The shift in the power dynamic was immediate and irreversible. The one who once looked at me with disdain now looked at me with fear. Not fear of violence or aggression, but the fear that arises when someone realizes too late that they have destroyed the only bridge that could save them from falling. The impact of my decision soon became apparent. One afternoon, while tending to some plants on my apartment balcony, I saw a familiar SUV pull up on the street. It was Amanda's car, a luxury model she bought with money from the company I built. She got out, slamming the door, her face a mask of anger and desperation. "We need to talk," she said as soon as I opened the door. I let her in, watching as her eyes scanned my small apartment with a mixture of disdain and surprise. Perhaps she had never truly realized where I had been living since I gave her the house. "What do you want, Amanda? I want to understand why you're doing this to me. Why now, after all these years?" I gestured for her to sit on the couch, but she remained standing, restless. "You really don't get it?" I asked, feeling a pang of sadness. "After everything that happened at that party, you still can't see it. It was just a joke that got out of hand. I had been drinking. I was nervous with all those important guests." She gestured frantically. "You can't ruin my life over this." "I'm not ruining your life, Amanda. I'm taking back mine." I kept my voice calm, though I felt my heart racing. "For years I gave you everything. The house I built with your father, the business I started to secure your future, access to my savings, and in return you made me a laughingstock." "I already apologized for that." "No, you didn't. This is the first time we've seen each other since that day. And you're only here because I took back what's mine." She finally collapsed onto the sofa, covering her face with her hands. "What's going to happen to the kids? Are you going to put your own grandchildren out on the street?" "Don't be dramatic. You're a lawyer. You make a good salary at the company that is still running, albeit now under my supervision. You can rent an apartment, start over." "Is that what you want? For me to start from scratch after everything we built?" "Everything I built," I corrected gently. "And yes, maybe starting from scratch is exactly what you need to understand the value of work, respect, and gratitude." She looked at me with teary eyes, but there was something calculated in that display of emotion. I knew my daughter too well not to notice when she was playing a part. "What if I show you that I've changed, that I understood my mistake?" "How would you do that?" "I can. I can have you come live with us again, in the new house when we find one. The kids miss you." I smiled sadly. "The same kids who laughed when you threw my cake on the floor?" She looked away, unable to argue. "They're just kids. They follow my lead. And I set a terrible example." For a moment, I almost believed there was a genuine flicker of remorse in her words. "Almost. Amanda, I'm not doing this to punish you or to force some kind of fake reconciliation. I'm doing it because at 70 years old I finally understand that I deserve respect. That all the sacrifices I made deserve at the very least gratitude." "And what do you expect me to do now? Beg?" "No, I expect you to grow up, to learn from the consequences of your actions, to build your own life without expecting me to give up mine to support you." She stood up abruptly. "You're going to regret this. When you're old, sick, and alone, you'll remember this day." "I'd rather be alone than surrounded by people who despise me, dear," I said, the words firm but without malice. "And as for getting old and sick, that will happen regardless of your presence in my life." Amanda stormed out, slamming the door, leaving behind only the echo of her empty threats. I didn't flinch. I had already cried all the tears I could for that broken relationship. Now I was focused on the future. A future where my dignity was non-negotiable. In the following weeks, I witnessed from a distance the collapse of the small empire Amanda had built on the back of my work. The house was vacated within the deadline. She moved into a rented apartment on the other side of town. The company continued to operate, but now under new management. I hired an experienced manager who reported directly to me. I took no pleasure in seeing her lose the comfort she was used to, but I felt a strange peace in realizing that finally, things were in their proper place. Justice, though delayed, brought with it a sense of restored order. One Saturday morning while having my coffee on the balcony, I received an unexpected visitor. Sophie, my youngest granddaughter, was standing at the gate holding a small package. "Grandma, can I come in?" I opened the gate, surprised and a little wary. "Does your mother know you're here?" She shook her head. I snuck out. I took a bus. Alarmed at the thought of an 8-year-old traveling alone across the city, I quickly ushered her inside. "That's dangerous, Sophie. Your mother must be worried." "She's out with the lawyers. She won't be back until tonight." The little girl looked around, curious about my small apartment. "Your place is nice, Grandma. Small but nice." "Thank you, sweetie. What brings you here?" She handed me the package she was carrying. "I made this for you. It's a late birthday present." With slightly trembling hands, I opened the package. Inside was a drawing made with colorful markers. It showed 2 stick figures, one small and one tall with gray hair, holding hands under a smiling sun. "That's us," she explained, pointing. "You and me." I felt a lump in my throat. "It's beautiful, Sophie. Thank you." "Mom shouldn't have thrown your cake on the floor," she said suddenly, looking at her own feet. I didn't think it was funny. I hugged her, feeling her small body against mine. "I know, sweetie. We live in a weird place now. Mom cries a lot at night when she thinks we can't hear her." That revelation hit me harder than I expected. Despite everything, Amanda was still my daughter. The same little girl who once ran into my arms when she got hurt. "Things will get better, Sophie. Your mother is a strong, smart woman. She'll find a way." "Are you still mad at her?" I thought for a moment before answering. "I'm not mad. I'm disappointed." "There's a difference. Can she do something so you won't be disappointed anymore?" The question, so innocent and direct, took me by surprise. "Maybe, but that's up to her, not me." Sophie nodded as if she perfectly understood the complexity of the situation despite her young age. "I need to take you home now. Your mom will worry if she finds out you left on your own." During the drive to Amanda's apartment, I watched Sophie in the rearview mirror. There was something of my daughter in her, the determination, the independence. But there was also something different, a sensitivity that Amanda seemed to have lost along the way. When we arrived, the building was noticeably less luxurious than the house where they used to live. Sophie squeezed my hand before getting out of the car. "Will you come visit me sometime soon, Grandma?" "Of course, sweetie. If your mother allows it." "She'll allow it. I'll make her." I smiled at her childish confidence. "Be kind to your mother, Sophie. She's going through a tough time." "Because of you?" "Because of her choices. There's a difference." I watched my granddaughter walk into the building, carrying with her an understanding that seemed beyond her years. Perhaps, I thought, the hope for reconciliation wasn't entirely lost. Not through Amanda, but through the next generation, which could still learn the value of respect and gratitude. On the way home, I passed by the old property I had reclaimed. The house was empty now, awaiting my decision about its future. I stopped the car out front and just stared at the familiar facade. So many memories were held within those walls. Amanda's birth, her first steps, my husband's death, the years of struggling alone to raise a daughter and build a secure future. And finally, the decision to give it all up, believing I was ensuring her happiness. In that moment, I had an idea. It wouldn't be an immediate reconciliation, nor an unconditional forgiveness. It would be a beginning, a small step towards something new. I went back home and called Mr. Henderson. "Counselor, I need your help preparing some more documents," I said as soon as he answered. "More changes to the will, Grace?" "Not exactly. I have other plans for that house." The months that followed brought a new routine to my life. After years of living only for others, I was finally learning to live for myself. I started attending a book club at the local library. I enrolled in painting classes, something I had always wanted to do but never had the time. I made new friends, people my age who understood the ups and downs of life. The house I reclaimed remained empty for a while as I considered what to do. Several real estate agents contacted me with tempting offers. The neighborhood had appreciated considerably over the years, but I had other plans. One Sunday afternoon, About 4 months after the cake incident, I received another unexpected visitor. It was Liam, my middle grandchild, now 12 years old. He was standing at the gate holding a worn-out bicycle, looking at my place with a mix of nervousness and determination. "Liam," I called out, surprised to see him. "Is something wrong?" "No, Grandma." He leaned his bike against the fence and came closer. "I just wanted to see you." I opened the gate and let him in. Unlike Sophie, who was all energy and smiles, Liam was always more reserved, thoughtful. He reminded me a lot of my late husband in that way. "How's the new school?" I asked, trying to break the silence. "Different. Less fancy, you know. But the teachers are cool." He paused as if gathering courage. "Mom is different too." "Different how?" "More present, I think. She cooks now. Did you know she never did that before? And she drives us to school herself. No more driver." That information surprised me. Amanda had always despised domestic chores, especially cooking. And is that a good thing or a bad thing? I asked, genuinely curious. "It's weird, but a good weird, I think." Liam looked at his hands, hesitating. "She cries a lot at night. She thinks we don't notice, but the apartment walls are thin." I felt a pang in my chest. "I'm sorry to hear that." "It's not your fault, Grandma." He looked at me with surprising maturity for his age. "Mom says it is, but I saw what she did at that party. It was horrible." "Sometimes people make mistakes, Liam. We all do. But throwing your cake on the floor wasn't a mistake. It was on purpose." He seemed indignant just remembering it. I've never seen anyone treat their own mother like that. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to defend Amanda, to say she wasn't a bad person, just lost in her own frustrations. Another part recognized the truth in Liam's words. What had happened wasn't a momentary impulse, but the result of years of unresolved resentment. "Why did you come to see me today, Liam?" He took a deep breath. "I wanted to know if you're still my grandma." The question caught me off guard. "Of course I am, dear. That will never change." "Even after what Mom did? Even after you took everything from her?" "Liam, what happened between your mother and me is complicated. But you, my grandchildren, had nothing to do with it. I still love you and I always will." He seemed to relax a little. "Mom said you abandoned us, that you don't care about us anymore." "And you believed her?" He shook his head. "That's why I came to see for myself." I sat next to him on the couch and took his hands. They were bigger than I remembered, the fingers starting to lose their childish look. "Liam, I want you to understand something. Sometimes adults make serious mistakes with each other. Sometimes it's necessary to set boundaries even with the people we love. What I did wasn't to hurt your mother or you. It was to restore something that had been broken a long time ago, my dignity." "What's dignity?" "It's the value we give ourselves. It's knowing we deserve respect no matter our age or circumstances." He nodded slowly. "Like when the gym teacher called me scrawny in front of the class and you said I should demand respect." "Exactly," I smiled, surprised he remembered that advice. "No one should let themselves be treated as if they have no value." "Not even by their own daughter?" he asked, his eyes fixed on mine. "Not even by their own daughter," I confirmed softly. We sat in silence for a few moments, each absorbing the weight of that conversation. Then he looked out the window and noticed the sun was beginning to set. "I have to go. Mom will worry if I get home after dark." I offered to drive him, but he refused, insisting the bike was faster through the shortcuts he knew. Before he left, he gave me a tight hug, the kind of hug that seemed to want to make up for all the months of absence. "Can I come back another day?" "Whenever you want, Liam. My door will be open." I watched him pedal down the street until he disappeared around the corner, feeling a mix of sadness and hope. The conversation with Liam had shown me that despite everything, something positive might be emerging from this painful situation. Amanda was facing challenges she had never had to face before, and perhaps that was forcing her to mature, to be more present in her children's lives. That night, I made a decision I had been considering for weeks. The house I reclaimed would not be sold. I had other plans for it. The next morning, I called Mr. Henderson. "Counselor, I need you to prepare new documentation. I want to turn the house into a foundation." "A foundation?" He sounded surprised. What kind of foundation? A community center for seniors, I explained. A place where people my age can gather, learn new things, share experiences, where they can be treated with the dignity they deserve. There was a brief silence and then he said, Grace, that's a wonderful idea. I'll start working on the paperwork today. In the weeks that followed, I dedicated myself completely to the project. I hired architects to adapt the house, researched similar programs in other cities, and spoke with social workers about the specific needs of the elderly in the community. The money from my savings, the money I had kept for years for emergencies, would finally be used for something that truly mattered. The project attracted the attention of the local media. A neighborhood newspaper published a story about the Dignity House. As I decided to call the center, the story briefly mentioned that the property had previously belonged to my daughter, but focused mainly on the transformation and the positive impact the place would have on the community. It was through that article that Amanda found out about my plan. One rainy afternoon, as I was overseeing the workers installing an access ramp at the entrance of the house, I saw her car park across the street. She just sat there watching for almost an hour without getting out of the car. When she finally drove away, I couldn't decipher the expression on her face. 2 weeks later, I received an envelope in the mail. Inside was a handwritten letter. Mom, I saw what you're doing with the house. First, I was furious. I thought it was another way to humiliate me, to show the world how ungrateful I had been. Then Sophie showed me the drawing she made for you. Liam told me about his visit to you without my permission. Even Noah, who rarely expresses his feelings, asked when he could see Grandma again. I realized that while I was losing everything, you weren't just seeking revenge. You were rebuilding something. Not just the house but your own life. I'm not asking you to forgive me, nor am I offering an empty apology. What I did at that party was unforgivable. It was cruel, petty, and revealed the kind of person I had become. I just want you to know that I'm trying to change. Not to get back what I lost materially, but so I don't lose what really matters. My children's respect and maybe one day yours too. If you need help with the community center, I'm a lawyer. I can offer pro bono legal assistance to the seniors who attend. It's not much, I know, but it's a start. Amanda, I read and reread the letter several times, trying to find Amanda's usual tone of manipulation, but surprisingly, it seemed genuine. There were no implied requests for me to reconsider my decisions, no attempts to make me feel guilty, just a sincere acknowledgement of her mistake and an offer of help that wouldn't benefit her. I didn't respond immediately. I needed time to process those words, to understand if I was truly ready to take a step toward reconciliation. The center's grand opening was scheduled for the following month. I invited friends, neighbors, local officials, social workers, and geriatricians who had agreed to offer their services periodically for free. But there were 3 special invitations I hadn't sent yet, all addressed to my grandchildren. After a week of reflecting on Amanda's letter, I made my decision. I sent the invitations to the children and added a 4th envelope for Amanda. It wasn't a complete pardon, nor a promise that everything would go back to the way it was. It was just an invitation to be present at a new beginning. On the day of the opening, the sky was exceptionally blue, as if nature itself wanted to celebrate with us. The house's garden was filled with people, many of whom I didn't even know personally. The community had embraced the idea with enthusiasm. As I prepared for the opening speech, I saw a familiar SUV park. Amanda got out wearing a simple dress, nothing like the expensive clothes she used to wear. The children followed behind, all dressed formally for the occasion. They stood discreetly at the back of the crowd as if not wanting to draw attention. I stepped up to the small makeshift stage and adjusted the microphone. Good afternoon, everyone. It is with immense joy that we inaugurate the Dignity House today. As I spoke about the importance of respecting the elderly, about how society often forgets the contributions of those who paved the way for younger generations, my gaze met Amanda's in the crowd. There was no arrogance in her eyes anymore. None of the calculating glint I knew so well. There was something different, something that looked almost like humility. This house, I continued, was built with love many years ago. It has seen moments of joy and sorrow. It has witnessed births and departures. Now it gains a new life, a new purpose, to be a place where dignity will never be questioned, where respect will be the foundation of all interactions. When I finished the speech, there was warm applause. People came to greet me, to praise the initiative. In the midst of the commotion, I lost sight of Amanda and the children. I thought perhaps they had left, that the small gesture of showing up had been difficult enough. But as the crowd began to disperse, heading toward the buffet set up in the garden, I saw Amanda standing alone in the old living room, now transformed into a common area with comfortable sofas and bookshelves filled with books. I approached slowly, unsure of what to say. Her back was to me, and she was looking at a photograph on the wall, the only personal decoration I had kept in the house. It was an old photo of her as a little girl, the two of us in the garden with me teaching her how to plant flowers. "Those were your favorite flowers," I said, stopping beside her. "Daisies." She nodded, not taking her eyes off the photo. "You had more patience than I will ever have. I would throw dirt everywhere, pull up the flowers before they bloomed, and you never yelled at me. Not once. You were just a child learning. And now? What's my excuse now?" She finally turned to me, her eyes misty. "When did I become this person, Mom? When did I start to believe I could treat you like that?" I didn't have a simple answer to that question. The transformation had been gradual. Small acts of disrespect that had piled up over the years. Each one a little worse than the last until it culminated in that terrible moment with the cake. "It doesn't matter when it started, Amanda. What matters is that you seem to realize now that something has to change. The kids miss you." She hesitated as if admitting it was extremely difficult. "I miss you too. I'm right here," I replied simply. "I always have been." "It's not that simple, is it? Not after what I did." "No, it's not simple. Trust once broken is not easily restored." She nodded, accepting the truth in those words. "What can I do then to start fixing things?" I looked back at the photo on the wall at that little Amanda with bright eyes and a sincere smile. Somewhere that child still existed, buried under layers of bitterness and ambition. "We can start small," I suggested. "Maybe a Sunday lunch with the kids once a month." A hesitant smile appeared on her lips. "I'd like that. And your offer of legal assistance for the center? Were you serious?" "Completely serious." "Then we can start there. One step at a time." We didn't hug. There were no dramatic declarations of forgiveness or promises of a perfect future. Just a small understanding, a tiny point of light in what once seemed like complete darkness. When Amanda left with the children a few hours later after a snack in the garden where we made safe, small talk, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. It wasn't complete forgiveness. Not yet. It was something more like acceptance. Acceptance that people can change, that relationships can be reinvented, and that sometimes the greatest dignity lies in allowing for new beginnings. A year has passed since the inauguration of the Dignity House. The center became a success beyond my wildest dreams. Every day, dozens of seniors attended the offered courses, participated in social activities, or simply came to chat and share experiences. I was there almost daily, no longer as the owner, but as a volunteer and occasionally a student. The Wednesday painting class became my favorite time of the week. My relationship with Amanda evolved slowly as expected. Sunday lunches became a tradition. At first, they were tense gatherings full of awkward silences and superficial conversations. But over time something began to shift. The children served as a bridge between us, filling the gaps with their school stories and plans for the future. Amanda kept her promise to offer legal assistance at the center. Once a week, she would come and advise seniors with questions about pensions, consumer rights, and family issues. At first, we avoided being alone in the same room, but gradually we began to exchange more than just polite words. We never spoke directly about the cake incident. It was like a wound we both knew existed, but one we weren't ready to fully expose. However, small comments, knowing glances, and moments of vulnerability began to build something that, if not exactly the mother-daughter relationship we had before, was something new and potentially healthier. One particularly quiet afternoon at the center, Amanda found me in the reading room where I was organizing recently donated books. "I need your opinion on something," she said, looking nervous. "Of course. What is it?" "I got a job offer. A nonprofit that provides legal aid to low-income families." I stopped what I was doing, surprised. Amanda had always worked at prestigious corporate law firms, defending companies and wealthy clients. That's a big change. The salary is lower, she admitted. A lot lower, actually. But after all this time working here at the center, I realized that, well, there are other ways to measure success. I smiled, genuinely proud. I think that would be wonderful. You were always a brilliant lawyer, Amanda. I can only imagine how much good you could do in that position. You really think so? The insecurity in her voice reminded me of the little girl who used to ask for my approval of her school drawings. I'm sure of it. You have the knowledge and the skill, and now it seems you've also found a purpose. She nodded, looking relieved. I'll accept it then. I start next month. As she turned to leave, something occurred to me. Amanda, wait. She stopped, turning back. I'm proud of you, I said simply. For a moment I thought she was going to cry. Her eyes welled up with unshed tears, but she just smiled, a genuine smile, with no trace of the arrogance that had characterized her for so long. Thanks, Mom. That night, sitting on my apartment balcony, I reflected on how surprising life could be in its twists and turns. The humiliation I suffered at that birthday party, which at the time seemed like the end of everything, ended up being the catalyst for a profound transformation, not just in my life, but in Amanda's as well. It hadn't been easy. Reclaiming what was rightfully mine, setting clear boundaries, demanding respect. Each step required more courage than I imagined I possessed at 70 years old. But the alternative, to continue accepting disrespect, to keep diminishing my own worth so as not to cause discomfort, would have been a slow form of self-erasure. 70 years taught me that true love does not demand self-annihilation. That giving everything to your children without expecting anything in return is not generosity. It's a disservice to both parties. That dignity is not a luxury reserved for the young and powerful. It is a basic right of every human being, regardless of age. A few days later I received a small package in the mail. Inside was a bakery box and a card. I opened the card first, immediately recognizing Amanda's handwriting. Mom, I know this won't erase what happened, but it's a start. With love, Amanda. Carefully I opened the bakery box. Inside was a small cake delicately decorated with sugar flowers. In the center, written in icing, was a single word: restart. I smiled, feeling a peace I hadn't experienced in a very long time. It wasn't a perfect happy ending. Life rarely offers such conclusions. It was something more valuable. A new chapter written with the ink of truth and mutual respect. I picked up my phone and dialed Amanda's number. Mom, she answered, sounding surprised. I received the cake, I said simply. Are you free on Sunday to come and eat it with me? Just the two of us this time. There was a pause on the other end of the line, followed by an emotional reply. I would love that. When I hung up, I looked out the window at the evening sky. At 71 years old, I had learned the most valuable lesson of my life. That it's never too late to demand respect, to rebuild relationships on stronger foundations, to find dignity where before there was only resignation. The cake thrown on the floor at that birthday party could have been the end of my story. Instead, it became the beginning of something new, something unexpectedly beautiful in its imperfection. Because true dignity isn't about never falling, but in how we choose to get back up.